Linda, I'm so excited that you're here to discuss your experience with the Permanent Weight Loss Formula course. And so just to start off with, what made you get interested in taking this course?
Oh, I became interested because I've had a lifetime of dealing with weight,
Mhm.
weight, and since I've been on this journey, I was exposed to the adverse childhood experience information, and
Yes.
so Mary has become a friend of mine through the adverse childhood experience connection network. And when I heard that she was going to use this as part of her teaching program, I thought, oh man, I want to be part of this. So that's part of what got me involved, is because it was a critical part of my journey to get
Yes.
information on board to help me with this whole issue around food, addiction, weight, and
Okay.
healing
And
from
so for you, how long has food and weight been an issue in your life?
forever,
Yeah.
forever. I mean, I have the looping is probably around the age of 10 when an uncle called me fat. And it
Oh
was
my
probably
gosh.
like the first time that you even registered, like, oh my gosh, could I be fat?
Yes. Yes.
So I ate, it's like I look back on pictures and I was definitely chubby, but I didn't have that looping of that belief that got
Right.
started. And so, and looking back, it was just very early on. My mom babysat professionally. She would bake cookies a couple times a week.
Yeah.
And so sugar became just a really great thing, to cope.
Right.
And
But
so it was very, very early, I would have
yeah.
to say that. And I think, as Mary, you've mentioned before, we gain access to food pretty easily when we're little.
Right.
And
It's like it's actually probably the first thing that we can soothe ourselves with.
exactly. And looking back too, I was not breastfed. I was formula fed.
Yep.
And so
Me
you
too.
look at probably the sugar in that,
Hmm.
so you just really get it on board at a very young age.
Right.
And then you notice family wise, that's how what they do as well. It becomes a familial thing, watching my parents, how they ate, you know,
Right.
and it was always, Dad, can you go get me something sweet from the store? It was always a goodie. It was always something
Yeah.
sweet as a
The
comfort.
treats were in food versus maybe just soothing on an emotional level or more
Yeah,
healthy.
there was no other regulation
Got
being,
it. So,
yeah.
so then, like, what was different about this course compared to other ways that you've attempted to have more, you know, reach a healthy weight and maintain it for life?
I think what was mainly different was this information about the adverse childhood experience and early childhood trauma and how it affects our brain, how
Yeah.
it affects our nervous system. And I think most programs, Weight Watchers, all of
Yeah.
those don't ever go into this.
Right.
And I loved, especially Mary, how you just had so much grace around that and gave us that grace to hold as, oh my gosh, this is how I got wired. Oh my gosh, this is how my brain got wired. And so you just don't beat yourself up as much
Exactly.
when you all of a sudden choose that, pint of ice cream. I mean, you just go,
Right. It's
wow, this was something that was brought on very early on and
right.
became a behavior.
Right.
And I was listening to Bruce Lipton today, and he said the way that we change those subconscious things is make them conscious. And I think
Exactly.
this ACEs information makes this stuff conscious. And,
Right.
and when we do go on a diet, we start out, chopping up the vegetables, doing the exercise, but after a while, the subconscious starts kicking in.
Exactly.
We, what is it? Subconscious works 95% of the time, conscious 5%. So then we get mad going, why can't I stick to this?
Right.
Why do I have no willpower? And now we know why. It's those
The brain changes that,
brain changes.
well, and as you spoke to, so many programs, I don't know of any programs that really bring forth this information about our brains getting changed and our impulse control having deficits. And so that's so important to really understand and recognize that, yes, it was not your fault. And yet there are ways that we can manage it. And like I've been able to maintain this over 100-pound weight loss for so many years because of taking into consideration, yes, I have a brain that has impulse control issues, that needs more to feel satiated, but I also have compassion for myself, and also little tricks and things that I've learned to not put myself in harm's way.
Right. And that becomes sort of like with your course, what you can measure, you can manage.
Yes.
I love that, because even though there were days and I'm like, I'm eating healthy, and then I realized I ate the whole bag of macadamia nuts.
Exactly.
Not just the fourth of a cup. So that was very powerful. And so it becomes these little habits that we take on, sort of like the habits of eating a healthier diet, the habits of exercise, the habits of perhaps going and learning, some new healing modalities, like you talked about, EMDR, neurofeedback, therapy, somatic therapy, you know what I mean? So
yes, all these things to help regulate your brain so you don't need to medicate with food.
Such a bridge of awareness.
Right.
But because of that awareness, then you also go, now that I'm aware, what can I do consciously?
Exactly.
What out there consciously that can help me regulate this brain of mine, so
well, that's so perfect. Well,
powerful.
I was so excited to have you in the class, because you are so aware of developmental trauma, or what's like childhood PTSD from these adverse childhood experiences. And I think the other thing I'd like to ask you about is, what was your take on how I brought forth choosing to take care of yourself in relationships, saying no, or asking for what you need, because when we don't do those things, we tend to eat over our.
Exactly. And that was so powerful, because I remember you said, okay, this week I want you to practice disappointing like 2 or 3 people. And I'm like, oh, I could just feel my whole body shut down, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have spent my life being the good girl, the pleaser, don't want to disappoint. And so it was like, wow, that was hugely powerful to learn how to do that, because so often people say, get a boundary, get a backbone, speak up.
But how do you do it?
But so many of us are not taught that
Exactly.
of how to do that. So I thought that was wonderful. And I know even from myself, when I have released weight, then when you start dealing with being in a smaller body,
yes,
with the attention that you're getting, that's uncomfortable, and people saying things that you just go, oh, this is uncomfortable. So that was helpful too, just going, how do you step up and show up in a right size body,
right. Well, and that's so true, because I actually, from that adverse childhood experiences study, Dr. Felitti found that the women that were in his weight loss program, they used food as a solution, and also their large body as a solution to protect them. So if we don't have those abilities to take care of ourselves, we're going to go back to our original coping mechanism. And so, yeah, it's so key to really know how to deal with a lot of the comments, because there's so many people just feel really comfortable mentioning stuff about our bodies in this culture. And so having the ability to set boundaries and ask for what we need is really key.
Exactly. And then I think this weekend I went to a parenting class, and they were talking about nonviolent communication. And I was discovering that because of how I was raised, I didn't have a lot of allowance of feelings, and a lot of understanding that I had needs. And so when they're saying, okay, what are your feelings and what were your needs? I'm like, oh my gosh, where's the chart? I have to excavate this, and so that's another part that's missing.
Exactly.
That you go, I don't even know what my needs are.
Well, of course, when you've been raised to believe that your needs don't matter, and that really your main purpose is to help other people, of course you're not going to be able to get in touch with that. And yet the thing that happens is, if we aren't, even though we might not be consciously aware of our needs, we do have needs, and they come out in the way we choose to use food when we're not getting those met.
Well, we choose these unhealthy coping mechanisms, and a lot of them, I say, now has passed the expiration date.
Yes, exactly.
Like, okay, Linda, you don't need to use your script from 7 years old. You know what I mean? You can change that up a little bit. And so that's what's been so helpful is doing that. And I think you did an excellent job in really explaining ACEs. You did an excellent job of just lining that out for everybody. Yeah. And it's a very difficult topic, and I know when I I'm around that being expressed and explained the first time, there's so many people that are like, it's a heavy, and we don't
Well, yeah.
go around talking about trauma, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and most people think of trauma as sexual or physical, and of course that is trauma. But also for me, it was emotional and neglect. Emotional neglect and emotional abuse. And a lot of people think, well, emotional abuse means you have to have someone screaming terrible things at you. For me, it was just subtle shaming remarks on a consistent basis.
Exactly. And the same thing too, if I were to score on my ACEs, I would have a 1.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things on there that, sort of like the emotional neglect.
Yeah.
In my case, it was a lot of silent treatment,
Oh,
and
wow.
always trying to reconnect. There's that attachment that we want so badly.
Well, we need it. Yeah.
We need it. And so even as an adult, that shows up when people don't get back in an email or a text.
Oh my gosh.
Those early experiences start to show up.
And the pain of that is what drives us to eat.
And even like Dr. Gabor says, it doesn't matter if it's physical or emotional, it still shows up in the same part of the brain.
Right.
And because we don't know how to cope, we're just like, where's the candy bar?
Well, exactly. That was, I mean, like I've shared before, that was what was available when my parents weren't. And I think the other thing that's really hard for people to talk about their childhood trauma or childhood adversity is they feel like they're blaming their parents. And what I always like to make sure everyone knows is that our parents were just parenting us the way they were parented. So it's, on one level, it's not their fault. And it's not to say you shouldn't feel the pain or the anger about that. But at the same time, they really did do the best they could, just like we're doing the best we can. And, but the reality is that if we don't deal with that emotional neglect or emotional abuse or physical or sexual abuse, it's going to keep driving the food and the eating. And that's the main thing I want to get across is we need to heal. And also, but we also, not only do we need to heal emotionally, but it's important. I'm just going to say this. I know this is your kind of sharing, but I just want to put this out there so people get it. It's also important to have a practical food plan and, and tracking it, because we can just go unconscious. I call it terminal ambiguity. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Because I think that a lot of times we'll have the tendency to say, I don't eat that much.
Yeah.
Or, oh my gosh, I ate so much, and unless we sit there and really kind of track it. And I think your class really helped me to kind of look at calories and kind of look at measurements of things, because I started to get into the point of I'm eating healthy, and I was eating everything healthy, but just maybe the whole bag of macadamia nuts.
Right.
And so that was so powerful to go, what is a healthy, healthy eating plan, and to write that down for many of us who do have that dysregulated brain, it really helps to have that kind of like in some format, to see some regulation as well as some repetition, that we need, to change our old behaviors that no longer work, I guess.
Right. So for you, if there was somebody that was sort of on the fence about taking this course, what would you say to them about it?
I would say that the huge difference with this course is learning some of these early behaviors that, affected us, and early things that happened to us that have wired us in a way that's affected our eating. Mm-hmm. And so this is such a hugely different program in the sense that it really helps with coming into terms with that consciousness of what's driving this, what's beneath this, and just going beyond the willpower mindset, the shaming mindset of what maybe happened early on for us that we can work on and bring to awareness and change, because we do have a brain that is constantly able to change,
Exactly.
So that's powerful. There's hope, Mary.
Well, yeah. And that's why I wanted to bring the course forward, because I was struggled with this for over 30 years. And I finally found a formula, and that's why I'm doing it. One last question. What surprised you the most or made you the happiest about taking this course?
The happiest was that you brought all of this together in one huge format. And I was so excited because of me being in the trauma-informed care
Yes.
community.
Yes.
I just have been have been longing, I should say, for someone to bring this all together. The information of, measurement, management, exercise, nutrition, and this piece about the early, I guess PTSD, developmental
Childhood people. Yeah.
trauma,
Yeah.
that is hugely important. And so that's what made me the happiest, is that you bravely, stepped out and created this program that brings it all together. And
Oh, well, thank you.
the missing piece, I would say, for a lot of
Wow.
programs out there.
And so one last question. So what will be different for you moving forward with just dealing with weight and food and emotional stuff after taking this course?
Definitely the constantly be measurement, you know what I mean? Just in some way, measurement. And then just the information on board about how the brain was wired, and so much, I guess, self-love and grace around that.
Good.
Compassion. And but having that knowledge, it just helps me, every day, to be able to be a little bit more comfortable in myself and listen to that authentic self instead of a lot of those other voices that, came into being. So that's, I guess that's what brings it forward into the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Linda. It was a joy to have you in the course, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And again, thank you for sharing your experience, and all the best to you.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Bye-bye.